Hello, my dear friends. Today, I want to invite you on a very special journey. A walk through memories, emotions, and surprises one can experience when moving into a nursing home. I know many of you, maybe even you, watching this right now, have felt fear, uncertainty, or just plain curiosity when wondering what life is really like in a care home. Is it sad, quiet, too different from the life we used to know? I wanted the same, until I experienced it. And let me tell you something from the heart. There are things that truly surprise you, some make you smile, others shake your soul a little. But all of them, every single one, are part of a rich, deep human experience and much more alive than you might imagine. In this video, I want to share with you 7 things I didn't expect when I first entered a nursing home. Ranked from least to most impactful, from the small details of daily life to the most beautiful moment. That instant when, without realizing it, the place stops being just a building and becomes your home. So stay with me until the end. I'm sure that at least one of these stories will also feel like a piece of your own. And if something touches your heart, don't hesitate to leave a comment or subscribe to the channel. This space is for us, the ones still living with all our heart. 7. The pace of life in a nursing home isn't as slow as you think. When I first entered a nursing home, I had a very clear image in my mind. Long hours of silence, quiet hallways, people sitting quietly staring out the window, waiting for the day to pass. That's the idea I had formed over the years. But what I found was completely different and honestly very surprising. On the first morning, before 8 o'clock, there was already movement everywhere. Some people were getting ready for a gentle exercise class. Others were heading to the dining room laughing, and a group was gathering in the common room to plan the day's activities. I felt like I had landed in a small, vibrant community. In many modern care homes, the focus is no longer simply taking care of the elderly, but helping them live actively, meaningfully, and with purpose. According to several studies in geriatrics, maintaining a structured and varied routine not only improves physical health, but also mental well-being. Harvard University, for example, highlights that regular participation in social and recreational activities can reduce the risk of depression and dementia in older adults. Here, the days go by quickly because there's so much to do. Monday afternoons we have painting classes. Tuesdays it's karaoke or movie day. Wednesdays, a little cooking workshop where we baked homemade bread last week. Thursdays, gentle gymnastics or yoga. Fridays, birthday celebrations, sometimes with live music. And on weekends, if the weather's nice, they organize trips to the nearby park or cultural outings. At first, I struggled to keep up. I came from a pretty quiet life, so all this activity felt a bit overwhelming. But little by little, I started getting involved. I began with short walks to the garden after breakfast. I tried the art class. I'm no Picasso, but I found I really enjoy blending colors and chatting with my fellow residents while we paint. The most important thing about these activities isn't whether you're good at something or not. It's the opportunity to connect, to laugh, to have a reason to wake up in the morning with excitement. One of the oldest residents, Don Ernesto, once told me, "It's not about passing time here, it's about living it." Of course, not everyone keeps the same pace. Some people prefer to observe or participate less. And that's okay. Everyone has their own rhythm, their own way. But the important thing is knowing that if you want it, there's always something to do, someone to talk to, something new to try. The idea that nursing homes are sad and silent places belongs to the past. Today, many function as small communities where individuality is valued, participation is encouraged, and both body and spirit are cared for. If you're thinking about moving into a care home, or if you have a loved one considering it, my advice is don't let prejudice guide you. Visit the place, talk to the residents, ask about the activities. And remember, aging doesn't mean fading away. It means living differently. After a few months here, I could say that every day still brings new surprises. And yes, there are quiet moments, but there are also bursts of laughter, celebrations, and new friendships. The pace of life here, far from being slow, has a heartbeat full of humanity. 6. Constant medical care that first surprised me, but later brought comfort. I remember clearly my first morning in the care home. I hadn't even finished settling in when someone gently knocked on my door. It was a nurse with a warm smile that'd take my blood pressure and ask if I'd taken my medication. I was a bit puzzled. I had lived alone for years, managing my own medications, sometimes forgetting them, sometimes doubling up by mistake, and no one had asked about my health that early in the morning since my wife was still alive. At first, it felt a bit too much. I'm not sick, I thought. But over the days, I began to notice something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace of mind. In modern care homes, medical attention isn't invasive or cold. It's consistent, yes, but it's designed to care for us, not control us. A team of professionals, doctors, nurses, caregivers, monitors our health in a personalized way. From taking vital signs like blood pressure and glucose, to managing medications, to regular checkups and psychological support when needed. According to data from Spain's Ministry of Health, over 70% of people aged at 75 and over have at least 2 chronic conditions. Taking multiple medications is common, and medication errors at home happen more often than we think. Here, that risk disappears. Every day, at the same hour, a nurse reminds me to take my medicine, and if there's any change in my treatment, it's coordinated with the home's primary care doctor. There are also fall prevention workshops, educational sessions on nutrition and diabetes management, even talks on how to improve sleep. All of it adapted to our pace, without making us feel like we're in a hospital. There's something deeply human about being cared for, not watched over but truly accompanied. Knowing that if I wake up one morning feeling unwell, I don't need to worry about calling emergency services or waiting alone in the living room. Here, there's always someone watching over us. Even at night, staff make quiet rounds to ensure everyone is okay. One of my fellow residents, Don Julio, told me recently, when I lived alone, I was afraid of falling in the shower and no one knowing. Now I sleep peacefully. I know that if something happens, there are hands ready to help me. Science backs this kind of care too. Geriatric studies show that older adults receiving consistent medical monitoring are less likely to be hospitalized due to preventable complications. That means we're not just feeling safer, we actually are healthier. And there's an emotional benefit you can't measure with a blood pressure monitor. The feeling of being seen, of knowing your well-being matters. At home, living alone, we often ignore symptoms out of fear or not wanting to worry our children. Here, the smallest discomfort is enough to receive professional help. And that difference, though it may seem small, could be life-changing. I know many older people feel that moving into a care home means losing independence. I thought so too, but now I see it differently. It's not about losing, it's about changing. Letting go of the fear of not being able to do everything alone and embracing a stage where care isn't a weakness, but a way of continuing to live with dignity. So yes, at first I was surprised to have a nurse taking my blood pressure every day. But now, almost a year later, I'm deeply grateful because behind every checkup, every pill given on time, lies something we often find hard to accept: but truly need. The right to be cared for, even after we've spent a lifetime caring for others. 5. Deep and meaningful social bonds. Making friends again in your golden years. When you first arrive at a care home, you usually feel a mix of emotions. Uncertainty, nervousness, and even a bit of sadness about leaving behind the home you've known all your life. But over time, what surprised me most wasn't the food or the daily routines. It was the people. Those people who, like me, had lived through so much and now shared the same roof, the same dining room, and little by little, the same memories. I never imagined that at 80 years old, I'd be making new friends again. Real friendships, the kind built not out of convenience, but from mutual understanding and genuine connection. In a care home, social bonds flourish almost effortlessly. Maybe it's because we share similar stories. Widowhood, children who live far away, memories of simpler times. Maybe it's because, at this age, we're less interested in impressing others and more in simply being heard. Whatever the reason, the connections that form here are powerful. I remember Dona Rosa, who shyly asked if she could sit beside me on my first day in the dining room. At first, we just shared that awkward silence of two newcomers. But soon we discovered we had both been teachers, both loved old tango songs, and had both lost our partners over a decade ago. Since then, we've not only shared meals, but also long conversations in the garden, card games, and laughter I didn't know I still had in me. Science supports this too. A study by Spain's Institute for Active Aging shows that social connections in older age directly impact both physical and mental health. Older adults with strong social ties have a lower risk of depression, cognitive decline, and heart disease. Just having someone to talk to, share worries with, or reminisce about happy times can greatly improve emotional well-being. What's beautiful about life in a care home is that it's not just about being around people. It's about feeling understood. The other residents know exactly what you're going through. You don't need to explain much. Sometimes a single look is enough to connect. In everyday life, that shows up in small gestures. A cup of tea when they see you're feeling low, a knock at your door just to ask how you slept, or a helping hand during a stroll down the hallway. And it's not just passing time. Many of these relationships grow deep, almost like family. Some celebrate birthdays together, call each other resident siblings, and even make plans to share rooms in the future if possible. A few people have told me that the friendships they've made here are more sincere than many they had in their youth, when life was full of obligations and rush. Of course, not everything is perfect. Some prefer to keep to themselves, and that's okay too. But the opportunity for connection is always there, in every hallway, every group activity, every chat over afternoon tea. All it takes is one small step to open your heart. For many of us, moving into a care home felt like the end of a chapter, but we quickly discovered that it can also be the start of a new one, filled with new friendships, shared affection, and true companionship. Because at the end of the day, what we need most isn't a bigger house, but a closer heart. And honestly, I feel lucky, because here, I've laughed again like I did when I was young, thanks to people I didn't even know a year ago, but who now feel like family. 4. The staff are more attentive than you'd imagine. A pleasant daily surprise. When people think about nursing homes before actually entering one, it's easy to fall into stereotypes or go by what we've seen on TV. We imagine cold, rushed caregivers who barely say good morning and treat residents like numbers. I myself feared becoming just the man in room 204. But reality, at least in my case, turned out to be completely different and far more human. From day one, I noticed something that truly surprised me. The warmth in their words, the patience in their gestures, and the tenderness in the little things. Marta, one of the nursing assistants, helped me unpack with a calm smile. She asked about the photos I brought, about my father's old watch, even about my taste in music. She wasn't just doing her job. She was trying to get to know me, to make me feel at ease, as if she were welcoming me into her own home. And it wasn't just Marta. Over the weeks, I came to see that many of the staff here, nurses, therapists, cleaners, have a quiet sense of vocation, a kind of natural affection for the elderly. It's not fake. You can feel it in the way they button your coat without being asked, in how they remember you like your coffee without sugar, in how they sit and listen to you, even when time is tight and their workload is heavy. Science backs up this experience too. Multiple gerontology studies highlight the importance of emotional bonds between staff and residents. A report from the Spanish Society of Geriatrics and Gerontology, SCGG, shows that empathy and warmth from healthcare workers have a direct impact on the mental health of older adults. People who feel respected and cared for are less likely to experience depression and more likely to follow medical treatments properly. But beyond the science, what's moved me most is that unexpected humanity. I remember one day I felt a bit low, for no clear reason. Nothing bad had happened, just one of those gray days. Julia, another young caregiver, noticed right away. She didn't say much. She just brought me a book she knew I liked and sat with me for a few minutes in silence. She didn't ask anything. Her presence was enough. Sometimes, you don't need words to feel accompanied. Of course, not everything is perfect. There are days when the staff are overwhelmed, especially when they're short on shifts or emergencies pop up. But even then, most of them still try to treat us with dignity and kindness. And that, believe me, makes all the difference. Receiving your medication with a cold gesture isn't the same as getting it with a smile and a "How are you today, Don Jose?" Families of residents often notice this human touch too, and feel at peace knowing their loved ones are in good hands. For us older folks, who sometimes feel like a burden, that daily recognition means the world. It reminds us that we're still people with stories, emotions, needs, not just patients. So, no, living in a care home doesn't mean giving up kindness or personal attention. On the contrary, in my experience, I've received more kind gestures here than I did during my last years living alone. And although it was hard to accept at first, today I could say I feel cared for, seen, and valued. If one day you're thinking of moving into a residence, or you're already considering it, don't let the stereotypes cloud your view. Open your heart to something new. You might just be pleasantly surprised, like I was, to discover that there's more humanity than you imagined, right where you least expected it. 3. The feeling of losing freedom at first. A phase that also passes. When I first entered the residence, I was carrying more than just clothes and medication in my suitcase. I carried fears, doubts, and above all, a question that wouldn't leave me alone. Will I still be myself here? During those first few days, I have to admit, I felt a little strange, as if my life were now being run by others. I was woken up at a set time, breakfast arrived punctually, daily activities were scheduled, and visits at specific hours. It wasn't like at home, where I could choose to sleep in, sip coffee at the window for an hour, or just do nothing at all. That sensation of not having full control over your daily decisions is something many people experience when they first arrive at a care home. It doesn't matter how lovingly you're treated. The change in routine can make you feel like you've lost something very precious, your freedom. But let me share something from my experience, and that of several friends here. That feeling doesn't last forever. According to studies published in geriatric psychology journals like the Journal of Aging Studies, the perception of loss of autonomy is a common psychological reaction to a new, structured environment. However, these same studies also show that over time, most older adults find a new balance between the structure of the place and their personal autonomy. In other words, with time, you learn to live in a new way without losing who you are. I, for example, began to see the daily routine not as a restriction, but as a support. Having a schedule helped me sleep better, eat healthier, and participate in activities I never would have dared to try before, like painting or yoga for seniors. Little by little, I stopped seeing the routine as an enemy and started to see it as a companion that helped me organize my days without taking away my essence. And here, I also found small ways to reclaim my freedom. Choosing the books I read in the afternoons, deciding whether I want company or alone time, decorating my space with items that remind me of home, even giving input on the weekly menu. It's true that I don't have the same level of control I had living alone, but it's also true that I no longer carry the same burdens that came with that so-called freedom. Going to the doctor alone, cooking, cleaning, managing medications. One day, while talking with Julia, a psychologist who works here, she said something that stayed with me. Freedom isn't always doing whatever you want. It's feeling like you have options. And that's exactly what many of us discover after getting through the first few weeks in a residence. We still have options. We still get to decide. It's just that now, those decisions happen within a setting that cares for us. So if you're about to take that step, or you've already taken it and feel the way I did at first, let me tell you this. It's completely normal. That feeling of lack of freedom is just a phase. And like all phases, it passes. With time, you'll find you can adapt, keep your identity, and discover new ways to enjoy each day. Even within a routine that once felt foreign. In the end, living here isn't about losing yourself. It's about reconnecting with a quieter, more cared-for version of yourself and realizing what truly matters. 2. Those unexpected moments of loneliness, when silence speaks louder than words. There's something no one tells you before moving into a care home. No matter how many people are around you, loneliness can still show up like a silent visitor. I felt it on the third night. Everything was quiet. I had dinner, chatted for a while with Mateo, a very kind gentleman my age, and then went up to my room. As I lay down, I turned on the bedside lamp I brought from home. One of those that gives off a warm, soft light like a hug. I looked at the ceiling and suddenly felt an emptiness in my chest. It wasn't deep sadness nor violent nostalgia. It was loneliness. What came to mind was the sound of my grandchildren's laughter. The way my daughter used to make my coffee with a pinch of cinnamon. Just how I like it. The little things. The ones you don't always value until they're no longer part of your daily life. The strange thing is that during the day, I felt accompanied. I joined workshops, chatted with other residents, even played dominoes in the afternoon. But still, those quiet moments, especially at night, made me feel far away. Has that ever happened to you? According to a study by Spain's National Institute for Older Adults, over 60% of elderly people in care homes experience occasional feelings of loneliness, even in environments full of activities and people. In this case, loneliness isn't the physical absence of others, but the emotional absence of deep connections or cherished memories. It's not a weakness, it's human, and more importantly, it's normal. What matters is acknowledging those moments, not repressing them. Because when we understand that loneliness is part of the adjustment process, We stop fighting it and start treating ourselves with more kindness. What helped me was writing. I started a small journal where every night I noted something I was grateful for. A conversation with the staff, a song I heard in the workshop, the taste of the soup. Looking at pictures of my family also helped, as did sending them voice messages with the help of Marta, one of the sweetest caregivers I've ever met. But the most powerful thing was learning to talk about it with other residents, with the sinner psychologist. I discovered I wasn't the only one, that many also felt that same knot in their stomach just before bed, and that talking about it not only eased the pain, but brought us closer together. Sometimes, all it takes is someone to listen for the silence, to stop hurting. One piece of advice I want to give you, if you're about to have this experience or already living it, is this: don't ignore those moments of emptiness. They're like little signals from the soul telling you that you missed something important. And that's okay. Embrace those feelings. Write about them. Tell someone, or just sit with them without fear. Remember that loneliness also has value. Sometimes in those quiet moments, we come to know ourselves best. We appreciate what once was, and we gather strength to keep going. Because yes, being in a care home can have its difficult moments, but it's also a place where you can reinvent yourself, heal, and build new connections. And those unexpected moments of loneliness will pass too. And when they do, you'll look back and say, I made it through. With an open heart, little by little, this place starts to feel like home. At first, I didn't want to accept that I would be living in a care home. I admit it openly. For me, as I imagine for many of you, the idea of leaving my house, my memories, my neighborhood, my routines, it was painful. I felt like walking through those doors meant closing a chapter of my life, leaving my identity behind. The first few days were confusing. Everything was new. The rooms, the schedules, the unfamiliar faces. Even the smell of the hallways felt strange. I felt like a guest who had arrived at a party where I didn't know anyone. Sometimes I silently asked myself, what am I doing here? But the weeks went by, and with them, small things began to change. Almost without noticing, I found myself looking forward to the morning walks in the garden. I got used to seeing Rosa, a cheerful lady, sitting on the same bench every afternoon feeding the sparrows. I began to greet Louise, the night nurse who always tells terrible but harmless jokes, with affection. And I realized how relaxed I felt listening to the same soft music after dinner, like it marked the peaceful end of a day. One day, without thinking much about it, I sat in the armchair by the hallway window, the one I initially thought was someone else's chair, and thought, this is my favorite spot. And that's when I knew. I knew clearly, and with a touch of amazement, I was starting to feel at home. It wasn't a decision. It wasn't that I woke up one day and said, this is my home. It was a process, a web of routines, affections, and small habits that, like a well-worn sweater, start to feel comfortable. According to studies from the Center for Research on Active Aging, emotional adaptation to a care home typically takes between 6 weeks and 3 months. During that time, the brain starts forming new emotional connections with the environment, creating a sense of safety and belonging. In other words, your heart starts accepting what your mind initially rejected. And that's the key, isn't it? Acceptance, not resignation, but opening your heart to a new chapter, to new connections, to new routines that also have value. Because when you stop thinking, they brought me here, and start thinking, I live here, everything changes. You no longer feel like a prisoner. You feel present. Today, when my grandchildren come to visit, I show them the garden as if it were mine. I tell them stories about my new friends, introduce them to Carmen, who's better at embroidery than anyone, or to Tomas, who sings boleros with a voice that still stirs emotion. And when I say goodbye, I no longer feel the old sadness. I feel a peace because I know I'm okay, because I'm home. If you're just starting this journey, or if you're still struggling to accept it, let me tell you this. Give yourself time. Be kind to yourself. Allow yourself to feel, to cry if needed, but don't close the door to new things. Because even if it seems impossible at first, this place can become a home, with its own rhythm, its own memories, and most of all, with new people who are also looking for the same thing you are, a place to feel loved and at peace. And believe me, that place exists. Sometimes you just need to look at it with new eyes.